Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Sisu Sisters podcast.
I'm Annukka, a LinkedIn coach.
And I'm Rita, a business English coach.
Our podcast is all about succeeding, with themes like life stories and life out moments. Welcome to our new episode of Sisu Sisters podcast. I'm Annukka and my co-host is Dorita.
Hi, everyone. Today we're really excited to have with us a very special guest. We have Finnish entrepreneur and founder of Ooni and Rairai, Mr. Kristian Tapaninaho, who joins us from Edinburgh, Scotland. Welcome.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on.
The Uuni pizza oven is a worldwide known product. How and why did you start Uuni?
Yeah, so it goes back to sort of 2010. Actually, I guess you could take the history all the way back to the 90s, but technically, let's say 2010. I got really into making pizza at home. My wife and I just got married. We were living in London, and I got really into making pizza at home with our domestic electric oven. And as a bit of a sort of like wanting to take things and continually make things better, I was trying to make my pizzas better and trying to improve them with this oven, and found that, well, one of the limiting things with my pizza wasn't the dough or the toppings, was really the temperature that the pizzas are cooked in. And because domestic ovens can't get up above sort of 230 degrees Celsius, that's not really enough for proper pizza. So Neapolitan style pizza, you're baking in sort of close to 500 degrees, 450 degrees Celsius. And from there, it's the realizing that, well, because my oven can't do this, maybe there's an oven I could buy for a garden or something like that was able to do it. And discovering that all of the options out there were very expensive. They were sort of like £2,000 or thousands to install a large traditional oven, and I wasn't really up for doing it. Actually, my wife and I didn't really have enough money to even consider such a thing, and we're renting. So I started thinking about, well, would it be possible to develop something that's compact? It's still gets up to very high temperatures, but it's also affordable, so anybody could make pizza in their back gardens. And that's where the sort of spark of the idea started from.
So, did you actually know if there was a market for this, or was it just a hunch? Sorry, this is a question that wasn't scripted.
No. Ask away. That's I wasn't sure if there was going to be a market for them, but I was pretty sure that thinking about it for myself. Well, I'm looking for one. I'm looking to buy one, and if I can't find one, I can't be the only one in the world that wants one of these things. I didn't know how big the market might be. I didn't know if there's 100 people or there's 100,000 people out there who would want one. So I wasn't quite sure, but I was quite sure that there would be some level of market. And that's why in the beginning, it was very much like trying to test out, to get the product to a level that I could actually at least sell some of them in very sort of like, kind of like a very homegrown, kind of way, start building these down in London, get the prototype to a level that it actually functioned really, really well. And but then when launching and introducing it to the market through a crowdfunding website called Kickstarter, it became clear that, well, I'm not alone. At least there's at least hundreds of people out there who'd like one, and that's kind of where it started, with finding these enthusiasts, much like myself, who really wanted to make great pizza at home. Now about almost 13 years since that campaign, we've sold over 3 million ovens worldwide. So they turned out to be other people out there than myself.
Definitely. So you started this in 2012. At what point, what was like a turning point that you realized that this is now a success and we're going to have to scale up from a homegrown product? Where was that point?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know if it sounds weird, but like I don't know if there's ever been that sort of like a point of like, oh, now this is a success and this is works. I've always had this kind of from the one part of it is that in the beginning I thought, well, I feel like this is a good enough idea to really invest my time in. We didn't again didn't have that much money, so it wasn't like we invested a lot of money in it, but it was a lot of my time went into it, and this felt like one of those ideas. I had many ideas over the years of different business ideas and different products, and this felt like just like 100x better than all the other ones that I'd had. So it felt like this idea deserves its attention, and it deserves the time commitment to it. But there's always, I don't know, it feels there wasn't like a point anywhere there that okay, now it needs extra amount, or it was almost like you're always sort of chasing the okay, well, we're here now, but I know we can go here. So it's constant sort of like we're not quite there yet feeling in a way that we're constantly looking for, well, what's the next point. There's been times when it's really struck home. I think in the early days when we got featured by Sunday Times Style magazine, there was a little feature on there, and we suddenly got. I remember so vividly. It was 2015, and it was Mother's Day in England and UK, and we had like 50 orders in one day, and that felt like this is a huge kind of step up from what it used to be. And so there has been these kind of step up moments. The other one was a few years later. There was a similar little tiny feature in Wall Street Journal in the US, and that sort of brought a huge number of sales and kind of raised the floor once again. But I guess that's the sort of analogy of it, is that you're constantly raising the floor, but at the same time the sort of ceiling goes up as well, and you need to keep reaching for it.
Another strange question again, but were you working on something else full time in another job, whilst you were doing Uuni? So when
Yes.
did that point come when you were like suddenly, oh, hang on, this isn't a hobby anymore. This is proper work now.
Yeah. So my wife and I, we've been fortunate in a way that we'd started our own business, other business. Actually has another Finnish name, Sukla, means chocolate to those who don't speak Finnish of your listeners. We started that in 2007, and that was started off as kind of wraparound of our freelance careers. We both studied photography and never worked as a photographer, but then did all sorts of like new media, as it was called back then, sort of internet, video photography kind of things, a lot of education work. And that was sort of, Sukla was there to wrap our freelance careers under one umbrella. And then Sukla is still going on, actually. A good friend of ours down south still runs it, and now specializes in these education conferences and festivals and education events, and working with different education bodies. And so it was really kind of natural sort of shift of, okay, I'm working on these things here with Sukla, and it was post that crowdfunding campaign, there was about 8 months from the campaign finishing and then kind of sliding over into the world of Uuni. And it felt like, well, this is now, as an opportunity, this is so much bigger. If this works out, it was no guarantee that this is going to work out, but the opportunity felt so much bigger with Uuni, that this felt like for both of us, both my wife and I, we kind of like, well, I'm going to focus on this now, and then see where we can take this, while she focused on our other business. As well as we have two kids. One of them was born in 2011, the other one was born in 2013, so right around the time of launching this. And so we were both able to kind of share the childcare as well at that point.
Yeah. Annukka, your turn.
Oh. Have you had any challenges or obstacles or surprises with Uuni?
Yeah, I think you constantly have something going on. What's kind of how I've described the last years, like we've had, whether it was first, it was we manufactured over in Finland originally, and our second manufacturer over there, once we exited them and moved on to a third manufacturer, actually continued to make the same product, make our product, and sell it under their own brand name. So smaller things like that, or then it's all the things that happened through COVID and the pandemic time. We had inventory on. We had 14 containers on Evergreen, the ship that got stuck in Suez. So we had 14 containers stuck on there, which then delayed everything. And there's always something, but I will like to it feels like all the problems as you grow bigger as a company. Now we're about 200 odd people, and it feels like all the problems that you have as you're a bigger company, they can become more critical and less interesting in a way, at least for me.
Yes,
and less fun to solve.
As the company scales up, so do the problems.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They just become bigger problems and bigger issues. But there's always something. There's always the next thing that you're figuring out.
So you mentioned your 14 containers being stuck on the Evergreen in the Suez Canal, and that the ovens were first manufactured in Finland. When we had a quick pre-recording chat, you and me, you told me that the ovens are now being manufactured in China. What sort of obstacles does that bring? And I think one of the questions we'd be really interested in hearing is, how do you find a trustworthy, good partner in China? Because I think a lot of people, for some reason, think that that's one of the main issues.
Yeah, so we've been again very fortunate in finding partners there. We still work with the same. One of the factories that we currently work with is still the same factory that I met in March 2015, and so we've got a really long-term relationship with them, and they've really grown. We're now a really significant part of their business. They're from the smaller scale of the businesses that are factories that we work with. We work with some of the world's largest white goods manufacturers as well. So it was quite a natural sort of transition in the beginning. It was very much what needed to be done. The area that we work in, where our factories are, sort of like 80% of barbecues in the world are manufactured around there. So there's a hugely connected and robust supply chain to be able to find, because these aren't just, there's an oven and it's got a bit of metal in it. There's hundreds of parts in each of the products, and we weren't able to. Finland and the West in general doesn't have supply chains like that. Now we're currently there's big push from the US to bring manufacturing back into the US, but it's practically impossible to do that, because you don't have the supply chains for the parts, and you don't have this labor force to be able to manufacture such things, or willing to manufacture such things. So we've had a really positive. There's always some things that go wrong, but actually we've had a really good relationship with all of the manufacturers that we've worked with. In the beginning, if you're starting from scratch and you want to take something to manufacture, they're people just like us. Like there's no difference really. They're predominantly, all of them are looking to run their businesses as well as they can. They're looking to make long-term good decisions. So it's just a matter of finding, just like you would anywhere in the West, you just want to find a good partner to work with. If you're in a smaller scale, you need to work with smaller factories and with smaller minimum order quantities. You want to keep your products simpler so that they don't require, so they're easier to get attraction from the manufacturers. But it's really, and there are sourcing agencies and sourcing companies that help, especially for smaller companies, that help kind of navigate that transition from bringing something from the West to for example, China. And they can help find the supply chains and suppliers for products over there. But we've had predominantly really good experience. manufacturing over there.
And you go over a fair bit, or how often would you go over?
Yeah, I've actually, like, we had of course, during pandemic there was a gap of a couple of years that nobody could travel over there. But since then, we were actually, many of our manufacturers, when the borders opened in start of 2023, as soon as there was an announcement from Jinping that borders are opening, we booked the flights, I think pretty much the same day. And we were one of the first ones to go and visit our manufacturing partners. Now we have a big enough team that they do much of the sort of more technical product development work with our partners over there. But I try and go. I think since the borders opened, I've been there pretty much exactly every 10 months, which kind of rotates the year a little bit. I was there just now, came back last week, and then before that November last year, before that January last year. So kind of try and rotate the time I'm there, because it fits in differently with our supply chain kind of schedules of building products.
Perfect. Yeah, so I guess we're coming back to that you said they are people as well. A personal relationship is needed even when your partner is somewhere thousands of miles away.
Yeah. And it's even more important when people are far away. As somebody, a bit of a transplant out of Finland, I've lived here now for 23 years. It is those kind of face-to-face times that you then kind of build the robust relationships that are then able to continue functioning really well and smoothly when you're not right there. And so you can have better video calls with your suppliers when you have actually sat down with them and worked with them in person. So it's about building those relationships, building that chemistry that you have, and kind of common understanding of how to work together. But we currently now have, more or less at any given time, there's somebody from the team over in China, or with our manufacturing partners, working on projects, working with the engineers over there. There's a huge amount of really great talented engineers to work and support building the product.
Fantastic. I mustn't say brilliant. Apparently, it's been pointed out to me by listeners and by Annukka that I always keep on saying brilliant. So I've changed tack now. I'm saying fantastic instead. So yeah. So if we're now going to the sort of like 3 takeaways, or what did you learn, etc. I think my first question would be, what would your top tip be if somebody wanted to follow in your footsteps? And I don't mean doing the same pizza oven, but as an entrepreneur, what would your top tip be to that person?
So I think entrepreneurship is much like many other things, but for me, it's it's a bit of a calling in a way. And it's, for personally, I don't think I had an option of like being something else than being an entrepreneur. It's a bit like you're an artist. No matter, you might you have this kind of internal desire to create things, and I think there's a similar thing with entrepreneurs. So there are my types of entrepreneurs, and then there are entrepreneurs who might not kind of imagine being an entrepreneur, but they have an idea that they feel like, actually, you know what, rather than doing this within the company that I'm in, or I've got an idea that I really actually feel like taking forward, then I think it's best thing is to really just try and understand what is the problem that you're trying to solve here. And then, like, this is how I approached the original pizza oven, was really understanding what is it that we're really trying to solve here. And for Uuni in the beginning, it was really about solving how to create high heat inside. So this was a product problem: how to create high heat in a compact space, how to distribute it effectively so that it can be attractive to customers, and how to also distribute it effectively so it doesn't become logistically really challenging, and trying to figure out, kind of solve. It's a problem solving kind of exercise, but it's really, before you can solve problems, you have to understand the problem that you're solving. sounds obvious, but so often people kind of jump into solutions, and sometimes you might have a good solution to something, but then you have to backtrack and figure out what the problem is and see if there's actually happens to be a better solution to that. I think really important to understand is that, well, is there a market bigger than just myself? If you're trying to, if it's a product idea, is this too complicated? Is this something that actually isn't that big of a deal for most people? And yeah, so understanding whether there's a market, and then you kind of work backwards, figure out with how to get to that point.
Yeah. I forgot to ask you earlier, but obviously Uuni started off with a different spelling. So it started off with the Finnish spelling. So obviously both of us are Finnish
Yeah.
expats here in Britain. And then you made a very, very brave decision. In my opinion, as a marketing person,
Yeah.
it's always very brave when people go and change the name of the hero product. Tell
Yeah.
us just a little bit about that, please.
Absolutely. So it was really early days of Uuni when trying to figure out. I had an idea for the product, and then didn't quite know what to call it yet. And my wife, then, who speaks a little bit of Finnish, but understands a lot more than speaks. And she thought, well, why don't we just call it Uuni in Finnish? So Uuni, Uuni. And because that means oven in Finnish, and we had our other business was called Sukla, so the Finnish name like that. We actually, with Sukla, we had a festival. Still have a festival, or learning festival called Oppi, OPPI, Oppi Festival, and so there was a bit of a history of this Finnish name. So I thought, well, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's call it Uuni, Uuni. And a couple of years into, so it's good. We had the domain uni.net, and a couple of years into it, started discovering, as we're kind of gaining traction in the market, people fairly often misspelled it. So they either spelled it as UNI, as in uni, or they spell it as or write it as UNNI. There was something about the form of those letters visually, U and I, that kind of get jumbled up in your brain, that don't form like a good sort of memory kind of imprint when you see them. So we started thinking about, and then when you pronounce it, people were often calling it uni, and as in short for university, and that sort of continued to create this confusion. So we actually we had this idea that, well, why don't we go with the phonetic of that spelling and call it ONI, which in UK, if you're English speaker, you pronounce as Uuni. And we were able to actually buy the domain.com, Uuni.com, which was really quite cool and exciting. Paid a lot of money for it, but it was still good, and it felt really natural. And I know there were people at the time saying, well, this is really risky, you've got all this traction you've built. But when you think about it, I always thought, well, don't really worry about the past, worry about the future, and because you can't change what's come before. And hopefully then it was 2018, I was like saying to the team that, look, we're hopefully going to have more customers in our future than we in our past, and certainly have since then. So it was good. It was good. It was a project took about 6 months to complete, changing all the sort of, we had this date 17th of July 2018, when we kind of flipped over the domain and started kind of flushing through old product into new spelling and stuff. So it was quite an involved process to getting that done, but it was really well worth it doing it. Now the funny thing now is that now all the Finnish people kind of mispronounce it. They call it Ooni, which I embrace, and I call it Ooni when I'm in Finland, just for
Who
yeah.
cares?
Yeah.
Right. We're going back to the 3 takeaways and tips. I think this
Yeah.
is your question, Annukka.
Yeah, you said that you shouldn't worry about the history, but would you do something differently?
Yeah, I mean, you end up, I think, like one of the things is that if you end up doing things, you end up living life, or you end up doing things that you never end up regretting anything. I feel like you've never tried quite hard enough. So there's definitely stuff that I would do differently, across sort of company strategy wise, personnel, all sorts of things. Um, there's things. I think one of the things that I would say is the key sort of thing I would do differently is if you once you know that certain change needs to be made. We've sometimes taken extremely long times to make that change and get alignment on changing things around, and or making a course correction or whatever that is. But like it's once it, I think as a like a advice I would have is that you probably within you know that something needs to change, and it's really important to listen to that and then make the change, because it's going to be, the sooner you do it, the better it is for everybody involved.
This sounds like another interview we did, Annukka, which was with Sovi Widgren in Finnish, who is the CEO of Rekka Group, when she said about like making those changes. So yeah, absolutely.
People have such aversion to change. They like things the way they are, and they see change as something that's bad. But actually, most of the time, change is good. There was an online study done some years ago, and it basically it was asking people if they're within like a in their lives at a point where they're at crossroads, and whether they take a change. And this was things like, I don't know, like things like whether I should quit my job or not. And in this study, they looked at those people who decided to change or stick with the same routine. And by a huge majority, those people who made a change at that point where they were at crossroads, were happier 6 months or 12 months later. And this is such a, like, I think there's an opportunity in change when things are moving. There's an opportunity for things to land in better places, and you have this kind of point of disruption where things sort of settle back down into some new order, and really most of the time it's actually things end up in a better place.
Wise words, very wise words, and I agree with that 100%. So I guess now we've talked a lot about Uuni, but we're now interested in your next projects, what's happening in your life next. And I obviously, as an expat Finn, has seen it all over Instagram, all over Facebook. Because what do Finns really miss about Finland? It's rye bread. And I've seen this product, Rairai, and surprise, surprise, it's the same gentleman who does Uuni. So tell us about this.
So Rairai has been sort of one of these back of my head projects for at least 10 years, like literally at least 10 years. I'm my first kind of, I've got an email from about 8 years ago. I've contacted our intellectual property lawyers asking if they could look into a certain name that I was thinking about. So I've been thinking about this actively for like really long time. And sort of tried to make the product myself, tried to make rye bread myself at home, and was never really good at it. It wasn't working out. Now, during those last 10 years, of course, Uuni's gone through multiple different growth phases, and it's taken up a huge amount of time. But then a couple of years ago, I remember I was in Finland in the summer of 22, I think. Yeah, 22 summer. I was in Finland. My wife and I and kids, we spent like my wife comes for 2 weeks in the summer, and then I spend a whole month in Finland in the summer. So kind of work remotely and take some time off, which is a really nice setup. The kids get to spend time with their grandparents over there. And I came across this rye bread, ruispala rye bread in Finland, that was like, okay, well, this is so much better than all the other ruispala bread we have in Finland. I was like, oh, this is quite something. And I was like, well, who makes it? And I found it's a bakery up in Rovaniemi. and I reached out to them that, hey, could we chat? And I'd love to learn more about you and how you make your bread. And I didn't hear anything back until then. Next summer, I was like, well, I didn't never heard anything back from, so I'll reach out again. And I got an email straight away back, and we then opened up in 23, opened up a conversation with this bakery over there, and started thinking about how this could work out. Now, going back a little bit, one of the problems that I kind of faced with thinking about this project first was that, well, to sell one slice of bread, you have to spend a couple of £1 million in building a bakery. And it's like, well, that's not, I don't have the time or the resources or the money to do that just now. So I might just I put the project back on a kind of a back burner. But when I found this bakery and I started having conversations with them, we had this idea that, well, why don't we, because we already, like all the Finns who live in UK, they all bring back rye bread, and it's get stuffed into your luggage in the little any extra space gets filled with rye bread. And usually we just stuff it in the freezer, and we know that it keeps super well there. And so we thought, well, we could do that same thing, but actually in larger volumes. So we started doing some testing of freezing pallets of bread in one go and then transporting it. And that was finding the bakery supplier partners to work with was really one of the key things in unlocking the project. And at least this way we can test the market. Again, a bit like with Uuni, we have to test the market. Is there demand for it? And with this one, we wanted to test it out. We're going D2C and selling the product online, which is again unusual. No one's ever bought bread online before, so it was quite a bit of a risk. But it's building that base level kind of brand awareness and helps us get to the next stage. So really so happy to have finally launched it, because this has been a project that's been kind of niggling, kind of starting to get louder and louder in the back of my head that, hey, you need to do something about this, otherwise it's not going to let go.
So is the end goal to have a bakery at some point, if this really explodes on the UK market?
Yeah, I think the logistics nature of selling a fresh product like this is that we do have to bring manufacture to the UK at some point. Now we're continuing to work with the bakery partner over there, and we would do it in partnership with them one way or another, and bring all one of the key ingredients is the flour that they use, Finnish flour. So we bring the flour from there and make it as authentic as possible, but at the same time be able to offer something that is as fresh as possible. But that's a little while away still. Yeah. I think we can still scale up quite nicely by making it in Finland. It keeps super well when it's frozen. So when you buy it from us, we've had it frozen from day it was baked. And then if you buy it on a Monday, it arrives to your house on Tuesday. That's the first time that's actually thawed since the baking took place. So you can actually safely refreeze it at home. So it's all kind of, and all being tested for food safety, and all that's been tested to the nth degree.
Excellent. So tell us as well, where, if somebody's listening to this and they go like, I must have some rye bread, where can they buy it? What's the website? I want to know. I'm asking for a friend.
Yeah, asking for a friend. So it's very easy. So the brand is called Rairai. And so it's rairai.com, rairai.com. So yeah, you can buy it there. We do deliver basically next day most places across the UK. It comes in a pack of 5 bags, and the idea is that because of logistics, again, you have to find an efficient size basically. But what we advise people to do is keep 1 or 2 of those bags in their cupboard and rest of them straight into the freezer, and you kind of take it as you need it from there. We are really trying to get this into supermarkets. Like this is the selling it online is just the beginning of it. This is really to test the market, and it's actually been so beautiful seeing so many Finnish people buy into the product. So, but lots of customers come through, and I still get an email for every customer, every order that comes into my main inbox. So just to keep an eye on like how it's going. And it's so beautiful seeing the number of Finnish names on that list there. So I know for a fact that there's thousands and thousands of Finnish people across the UK who are really looking for this product to be back in their lives. But what we'd really love is if people, one, of course, buy the product and spread the word, like actually just buy the bag and give to your friends, because invariably people absolutely love this product. And there's been really so nice hearing is from all the British people who've never necessarily tried the product before. They're like, oh my God, why hasn't this been available before? It's completely changing the way they eat breakfast, or what kind of bread they're able to eat. So yeah, we're trying to get it into supermarkets, but we'll need everybody's help in kind of making the brand known across the UK.
I'm going to have to say brilliant this time, and not just fantastic.
Excellent.
Annukka, did we have any more questions, or are we going to let Kristian go in a minute?
Well, I have lots of questions, but I think that it would take hours and hours if we continue. So
we might have to do a part 2 in a few years' time and see what's happened with Rairai and everything. But
yeah,
for now, thank you so much for coming on our podcast. You have been on our hit list for quite some time. We wanted to speak to this gentleman who's brought the Uuni oven everywhere, and now even rye bread. So thank you very much.
yeah,
thanks so much for having me. I love talking about business, and I love talking about projects we're working on here. So yeah, this was a great pleasure to chat with you both.
Thank you.
Brilliant, I would say, even.
So that was Kristian Tapaninaho, the founder of Uuni pizza ovens and Rairai rye bread. I have to say, what a lovely gentleman, and such a down-to-earth way of dealing with things, and brilliant tips. And I said brilliant again. Fantastic tips. And one of the things I took away was when he said that, the people who have made the change are normally happier than the people who are just staying in the situation. And he obviously saw something needed to change, and he made that change.
Yeah, true. Change is good. I like that when he said it.
Definitely. I think this is all from me, but before I go, Annukka, if people want to find you somewhere, if they want to look you up, where can they find you?
They normally or usually find me on LinkedIn, Annukka Toivonen, and then you can also find me on Instagram, Annukka Toivonen, and on YouTube, Annukka Toivonen.
There you go.
And what about you, Dorita?
Of course, I'm on LinkedIn as well, Dorita Dahl Foreman. I'm on Instagram as English with Dorita, and I have my own website, English with Dorita. And the podcast, if you are interested in any of our previous episodes, we even mentioned one there, you can go either to sisselsisterspodcast.com or look us up on Spotify or our YouTube channel, Sissel Sisters Podcast.
Yep, true that.
That's all from us. And I'm just going to say it's over and out from me.
And it's goodbye from me here in Finland. Bye.